Whether it's to surprise and challenge your players with something they haven't seen before, put an unexpected twist on a well-recognised monster, or to somehow translate your own personal sleep paralysis demon into a D&D game with your friends, homebrew monsters always make D&D more exciting and fresh. I'm going to explain what I think are the best ways to go about creating homebrew monsters, walk you through a few steps, and show you how you can do it with some examples, then give you some resources you can use to make this a lot easier for yourself. I think there are three main kinds of homebrew monsters: original ideas, altering an existing monster, or translating a monster from other media into 5th edition. Let's take a look at original ideas first. As an example, let's have a look at the Blood Fiend, a monster I created for a one-shot I posted on DM's Guild. First thing was to come up with an idea. You may already have one, but if not, think about the type of game you're running, the environment, and the vibe you're going for with the monster. Mine was a horror one-shot game, in a crypt corrupted by fiendish influence, and I wanted something that took over people's bodies and possessed them, but in a much more body horror way than a ghost might. First thing is to think of how strong you want this thing to be in terms of rough challenge rating, and I like to use a similar CR monster as a bit of a baseline stat block template, we can tweak from there rather than starting from scratch. This was a level 4 adventure, but this is going to be the boss monster, so let's start with a CR5 Barbed Devil, raise the HP a bit because my players are bloodthirsty min-maxing maniacs, and tweak its stats, resistance, proficiencies, and abilities so they're just how I want them. Adding some resistances or even vulnerabilities can make monsters much more dynamic, and vulnerabilities especially tend to be fairly rare. For this one, let's say cold and radiant damage can break him out of a possession. But he is a fiend, so let's keep that fire immunity, making fire damage heal him a little, and recharge a flame breath we're going to add him later. Inspired by the Body Snatcher from Grim Hollow, I took its possession ability and tweaked it a little, so as to not insta-kill a player. Not that mean. Let's bake this into his standard attack so that he doesn't have to use a whole turn to attempt a possession. This is going to let us dish out a little more damage with him. This guy's already looking tough, so I didn't want to go dragon level with his flame breath. It is a 4th level adventure, so let's take 2nd level spell Agonizer's Scorcher, add 1 dice of damage, and let it recharge on a 5 or 6. This way he's dishing out dex saves from range, not just swipes up close. If you're making a boss monster or something that's going to be fighting alone, the best thing you can do to stop it from getting fucking deleted out of existence with action economy on turn 1 is to give it some legendary actions. A ranged attack, a cantrip, teleport, move action, or just more melee attacks, whatever feels right to you. This guy's going to have minions and already has a lot to do on his turn, so let's leave legendary actions for now. But maybe sneak a little Hellish Rebuke reaction in there as an extra fuck you to that paladin. Lair actions are great for boss monsters too, so let's give this guy a lair action on initiative count 20 that summons another weaker monster. That way these are going to stack up and get annoying if the party doesn't handle them and just keeps focusing the boss. Alright, just tweak any dice to balance out damage so you're not one-shotting players, unless you're into that, and that's about done. Now let's have a look at altering an existing stat block. You can take an existing monster stat block and change it up to match your vision, changing or swapping out its abilities, stats, or attacks for those of other monsters or ones you made up. For the example, let's say you want to make some monsters with a storm vibe, but something different that's not just elementals and storm giants. What about giant lightning wolves that can run on the wind and follow storms around? Let's take a CR3 Winter Wolf. If you wanted this to be more or less powerful, just scale its stats and damage to be more in line with the creature around the challenge rating you're looking for. Let's change that damage immunity to Thunder and Lightning, languages to Thunderwolf, and leave its keen hearing and smell and pack tactics. Fly speed to match its walking speed so it can run on the wind, and let's swap out that snow camouflage since it doesn't really make sense here. Let's add a bit more danger and give this thing a changed version of the Heated Body ability from Ramaraz. But change it to lightning damage and just make it 1d6, don't want to make these things too crazy or it's going to push that challenge rating up. Now let's change that cold breath to a lightning breath, make it a line instead of a cone to match other lightning breath attacks, and adjust the damage and HP as you see fit, and bam, a zappy wolf boy. Last up, let's talk about translating a monster from other media into D&D. It's a good idea to think about what the creature would have at its disposal, the type of attacks and damage it would do, if it's powerful enough to have legendary or lair actions, and what kind of power level you actually want it to be. If you want your party to fight Naruto and you build him as a level 20 player character but your party's level 3, it's not going to end well. I still think that the best starting point is to find an existing monster around the CR you're looking for as a basis for the stats. Try to get as close to the same type of creature as you can, but remember we can always swap around and tweak its stats and abilities. Let's do like we said earlier, and build a stat block for my own sleep paralysis demon. A Night Hag is pretty close to that vibe and even has some abilities that work for it, so let's start there. It's already a fiend, which we could change to an undead if it was a ghost, but let's go with fiend since we did say it's a sleep paralysis demon. Let's lower that HP a little. He's all about locking you down, he doesn't tend to stick around long when I can move again and start throwing hands. Let's give him a skill proficiency in athletics since he's good at grappling, and we can probably leave his resistance, immunities, and senses the same. I think it's fair to say you could cast spells, but let's swap out that spell list. Hold Person, Sleep, Phantasmal Force, Phantasmal Killer, Invisibility, Rave Enfeeblement, and Plane Shift seem to fit. Let's get rid of those Night Hag items, I don't think the demon has them. As for the attacks, I think they're pretty solid, but let's add in a paralysing effect to the claws, like a ghoul, to help him lock down targets, and just remove any mention of hag from those descriptions, and you've got a sleep paralysis demon ready to go. Now, if you just wanted to change a monster to be more or less powerful, just tweak its HP, AC, stats, damage numbers, and saving throw junk to more closely match the kind of level range you're looking for. Just keep an eye on those abilities or resistances if they need a buff or nerf. Looking at the kind of numbers on other monsters around the level you're looking for is the best way to gauge this. I tend not to worry about exact balancing with homebrew monsters. Once you play for a while you get the hang of the approximate power level of the monster your party can take, but there are some CR calculators online if you want to be sure, and comparing the average damage to monsters of a similar CR you're after can't hurt. Though do be warned, CR can be whack at the best of times and isn't super accurate measure of TPK ability. Also remember to factor in any abilities, they can give a really big advantage. There are a few Statblock generators online too, some even let you save and upload templates you make, or use existing monsters. This makes it a lot easier than starting from scratch. Feel free to write down some lore alongside them as well, to help your headcanon and give some background to them. And there you have it. Now you can set up those horrifying abominations from your nightmares to traumatize your friends at your next D&D game, or just plan a one-shot around a monster hunt for Sonic the Hedgehog. You do you. Thanks for watching.